Hi there. My name is Scott Marker, and this is another episode of Treasure Valley Quick Tips. And what they are is I'm a franchise owner here in the Treasure Valley of Network in Action, which is out of Houston, Texas, and I run once a month professional referral groups. And from that, I came up with doing a podcast on interviewing local experts here in the Treasure Valley, Idaho, and just bringing their expertise, the other business owners and like-minded business professionals, and trying to share the wealth of knowledge of people that I bump into. And so today I have Joe. So Joe, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, I'm Joe Mikitish. I own Do Work University and Winning Reviews. So, my background, I used to work for big, huge companies 20 years ago. Started my own business in the IT space doing cloud computing, and I've sold that business, and I've started 6 total businesses that I've grown to 7 figures in revenue within 18 months of starting them up. And so the Do Work University is me teaching business owners what works, what doesn't work, the trials and tribulations of starting businesses that we all go through, but also trying to help people jump their businesses up a little bit faster, grow their businesses faster without so much pain and agony.
The do work though. Explain a bit more about that. I mean, is it an online?
Yeah, it's online. Yeah,
Okay.
I teach in person classes as well. So I do, not so much this last year and a half, but I was kind of known for teaching workshops and boot camps in person. And we'll be starting that back up next month. So we'll be doing the in-person ones. But so far, this last year and a half, they've really been online via Zoom. And then I have a e-learning e-course type of environment that I've built so people can consume that content in modules rather than like drinking from a fire hose in
Cool.
3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you a kind of a little shout out here. Is you caught me one of your my Google business pages, and I'm telling you, it was like fire hose was an understatement. There was a whole bunch of other business owners on there, and it was amazing how much information you shared. So when you had mentioned what you were doing, I said that'd be great because that way you could go back and review it because it was such a bunch of great information. But I even had some people on there that told me afterwards that they used to be in charge of that for like a franchise across the United States. The Google business pages, and they said they couldn't believe how much they learned from your class. So shout out to you on that. So when I heard you were doing your online stuff, I thought that's perfect because that way people can go back and not get the fire hose.
Well,
because it was a lot of great information. It was a lot.
It is a lot. And after, about 500 people in the exit surveys after the workshops all said, this is great. I loved it, but it'd be nice if you had a little course where I could take this in like 10-minute increments. I'm like, and my personality sitting in front of a computer doing 10-minute videos is like torture. I'm I like to have this, banter and this back and forth. And, that's my teaching style and that's how I like to learn. Right. But, I've been doing that for the last few months, just putting everything together, all my courses into consumable, smaller chunks. So
cool. Well, that's awesome, man. That's relative news. That's exciting. Hey, so if someone was going to ask you, like, what's the biggest investment, business owner can do, what, in their business, what do you think that would be?
I'm a little biased here because I'm in education and I like teaching people, but I would say the number one investment that I see business owners who are successful make, from Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, you talk about Bill Gates, one of the things that they all do is they never stop learning and they invest in education. I've seen people who are billionaires sitting in the audience at conferences that I've been at where you pay to go to a 2-week or 2-day boot camp, and it's like 8-hour days and you're sitting there learning and filling out, writing down all these notes. And I look over and there's a guy who I know owns a business that does, 2-3 billion a year. And, and they're just constantly feeding themselves with new education, new content and constantly learning. Yeah. And so that's been, you see all these books behind me, I got Grant Cardone looking over my shoulder right here. That's his picture. And, he's back there telling me to get to work, so I'm big on education. And I think that 100% of my success is not my formal education, not college, not high school. It's the education afterwards. And why learn the painful way of stumbling and tripping and falling
Yep.
and learning
Yep.
everything the hard way when I got all these people who've done it. I can buy a book for $20 and learn what they did. And like Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, those type of people, all the way to Sam Walton. I can learn everything that he did in his business and mistakes he made and go, oh, I'm not going to do that. It saves you so much time and money and gets you so much
Yeah.
further ahead than figuring out on your own.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I tell the people is also, that's why I do this podcast is it's how you like to consume content. Right. And and that's why I bring different people on like you with sharing different types of expertise, because no one knows everything, so it's just, and I'm like that. I'm always fascinated by bringing different people on and getting different ideas. But it's like, is it a book? Nowadays there's so many different ways to consume content. That's
Right.
the key is now here in the near future, hopefully you'll be back to some live events and doing things like that. But
Right.
it again, podcasts have exploded because we couldn't meet in person, and they were big before, but now they're bigger than ever. And it's just trying to consume content, at a spoonful at a time. So,
Right. And podcasts
go
are
ahead.
amazing for that, right? Because you can jump onto a podcast or Clubhouse and jump on Clubhouse and listen to 3 or 4 billionaires in a room
Yeah.
talking about stuff that they're doing. And you know how much it would cost you to sit
Yeah.
in a room with somebody like that? And it's free. It's incredible.
Wow. Hey, well, the economy, especially because we both live here in the Treasure Valley, Idaho, is just, COVID, of course, restaurants and stuff like that, but overall, like the building industry, just any of the trades, we are just exploding everywhere. A lot of businesses have had more growth than they've had. So what's some advice you can give some business owners to take advantage of, some of these, when things are so crazy like this?
Well, I went through this in the downturn in 2007, 2008. And that year, 2008, I grew my business 400% that year. So that was
Wow.
the worst economy we've maybe ever had in this country.
Right.
And what I did was I got more aggressive. And when the economy's good, I get super aggressive, and I tell people, you tend to hold back a little bit because the business is coming in, the business is coming on its own.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, I'm not going to do so much marketing. I'm not going to do so much outreach. I'm going to, dial back a little bit on the text messages and the emails because I'm getting so much organic business. Well, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to go on forever, right? If we know the cycles of the economy is high right now, and it's going to, come down on the other side. The people who are staying consistent with their marketing, staying consistent with their message, staying out in front of people, networking. Don't hold back on it. You gotta double down on it now so that when the economy does take a little bit of a dip, you're still growing. Everybody else is taking a dive.
Right.
See the work I did in 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007 is, I was pedal to the metal the whole way. And that was during an economic boom time.
Right.
And then when 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010 hit, I still grew. Where everybody else was faltering. All my competitors, I was eating their lunch.
Right.
I never took my foot off the floor when the economy was good.
Right.
So
that's awesome. Yeah. People get complacent. They get complacent. They don't. It's all about taking care of business today rather than looking out and working on the business. They do a lot of stuff like that. So that makes total sense because, like I said, I look around right now and there's a lot of businesses that. The old E-Myth saying, but I think it's brilliant is, you got to get off the hamster wheel and work on your business and not in it every day. And I see a lot of business owners that seem to be in their business every day because they're just putting out fires every day. And they, it'd be good to look out. Hey, what about a year from now? What about 5 years from now? So that makes a lot of sense.
Well, they don't even think 6 months out. Right. And because they're just like run. And they don't realize that what they're doing is causing themselves a bunch of problems. You can't just stop working. I never suggest people stop working in their business, really, although if you're working on exit strategy, you should work your way out of it before you sell it. But, most of the time, I think people really, they need to be reading more and doing more education. I get people all the time. They're like, I can't spend 2 hours doing education in a week because I'm too busy. I'm like,
Right.
what are you talking about? Right now I'm running 3 different businesses, running between them. And I spend probably 8 hours a week doing education, self-education.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, and I just do time blocking. There's a book called Deep Work. It's about time blocking.
Right.
And, another one called Eat That Frog. If people read those 2 books, they would have more time. But instead they got this huge list of things to do and they run around all over the place. They don't actually get anything done. Where I'm like, I turn off my phone and people are like, I tried to get a hold of you. I'm like, yeah, that's my time alarm. I'm doing education, 3 hours. I have a 3-hour block. I shut my phone off. No
Wow.
email, no phone, nothing.
Wow.
And that's how you get it done. And then on the other side of it, I come in, I'm like, guess what I learned? Now I can take my business to the next level. I don't have to
Yeah.
work so hard because I'm working smarter.
That goes right in my next question. I know that you've done it all in the past, but then recently you've kind of been doing more research on it and stuff, but negotiations, right? That's always, we're negotiating all the time, with spouses, with businesses, business deals and stuff. So what's the, because I haven't really looked into that recently. So what's kind of new in the strategies and thinking and when it comes to negotiations for a business owner, for sales or both?
It's really interesting because I read Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, several
Yep.
years ago. In fact, Allison Dunn, who's a business coach here in town,
Yep. I
recommended
know
I
her.
read it. And she's like, you should read this book. It's amazing. And I read it and I was like, this is great theory. I don't really know how to apply it to my everyday. And then I just happened to get an ad on Facebook for Masterclass, and that Chris Voss was on there, who wrote,
Oh,
he wrote the book Never Split the Difference. And I was like, this is
wow.
great. I'm actually gonna watch him so he can teach me. And this is the nice thing about, I love books, clearly, but
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you need to have somebody teach you how to do it in a way where, they're like, let me show you some examples. Let's do some role playing. And so I've been going through his master class. And so I did a one-to-one yesterday with somebody, we just had a coffee meeting, and I'm like, I'm going to use these negotiation techniques that he taught on how to build relationships with people. So in
Oh,
that meeting, I used 2 of his techniques, which was, basically mirroring somebody, but not like we think of when we're thinking about relationship
yeah.
mirroring, like
Yeah.
you've ever taken
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
marriage class where they're like, lean forward, they lean forward, but it's more like mirroring what they say to keep the conversation going. And then using a statement that says, it seems like you're passionate about, it seems like you love, it seems like, and so at the end of the
Oh,
1 hour one-to-one, the person I did the one-to-one with, she was like, this is the best one-to-one I've ever had. And I was like, I actually was doing an experiment on you to see if this would work.
oh, wow.
And, and I wanted to, and I'm like, so this relationship that I got out of this in 1 hour, and I'd only met her one time before in passing, enough time to schedule a one-to-one. We'd never met before. I'm
Right.
like, at the end of this meeting, if I called you and I was stuck on the side of the road, she was like, I would absolutely come to help you because I have more trust with you than people I've known for years.
Wow.
And that, just that little bit, I'm like, okay, that guy's on to something. Of course he's got 30, 40 years of negotiation experience.
Yeah. So
I don't have
help me.
I don't have much
Yeah.
experience.
So help
I
me.
gotta learn from him.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you were saying mirroring her, you would say, well, so when you'd like to say, well, it seems like this is how you feel about that, or it seems like that, is that kind of how then it got
Yeah,
her to expand on stuff or
right.
understand you were listening to her or
Yeah, when we have one-to-ones, typically what they recommend in sales training is you ask questions, right? It's
yeah,
question-based sales, right? So
yeah,
you're trying to get people to answer these questions. Well, sometimes those questions seem forced, or the person knows what you're doing to them, right?
yeah.
So I only asked her one question, and at the beginning, I was like, "Tell me one thing in your personal life you're passionate about doing, one thing in your business life you're passionate about, and then one thing that you want to do sometime in the future that you got on your goal sheet and it's a big hairy goal that you really want to
Right.
go after." And so she told me those things and I could see her eyes light up and she starts telling me, about
Um,
these passions that she has. And so I just kept repeating back the last 3 words of every sentence. I'm like, in a question form. And then she
right.
would elaborate more. Then I go, man, it seems like you're really passionate about this. And then she's like, yeah. And then she would talk more. And I never asked her another question the whole hour. I never asked
Wow.
her another question. But I got at the end of it, I was like, I can tell you that you're passionate about this. You're passionate about people. You're
Yeah.
passionate about your friends. You're passionate about your
Yeah.
business partners. and on and on and on. She was like, wow, you got all that information? I'm like, hey, you told it all to me without me asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. Cause I mean, I don't, that's good advice. It's something that I can even learn from, on that. But the thing I try to do, cause typical, um, if you have a sales background, especially, you end up talking too much, and rather than listening, you're supposed to be listening, you don't. So one thing I try to do is I try to like go to LinkedIn or something like that, even if it's just a little one-on-one, nothing big, and just kind of do a little research on them and ask them some questions to kind of get them to open up about some things because it keeps you from talking about yourself.
Right.
And then it also, they're like, hey, this person actually cares because they actually know that I like this. They actually know this about me and stuff. And so, and then anyway, I think that's, like kind of can only help you out, in anything in life, just like people think that you actually care about them. And same, I guess it'd be same in negotiations. If somebody thinks that, I guess now that you mentioned that, this might not be kind of out of context, but kind of thinking about the negotiations, the old school negotiations, you're thinking like, I don't know, just really rigid. You're trying to lead a person down the path, or you're trying to hope that even they're going this way, you're going to end up where you want to end up and stuff. Versus, and that's kind of salesy. Versus, if you're negotiating with them, but you actually make them feel like you care about them, you know what I mean? Is that they might be more open to give in a little bit. So that's a
Well,
great way to look at it.
it's authenticity too, right?
Yeah.
You have to authentically and actually be curious and caring,
Right.
where, you've been around the salespeople where you're in the room with them and you're like, just
Yeah.
quit, just, you got to get off of your thing that you want and
Yeah.
listen to what they actually are telling you. Because most of the time they're not going to go yes or no, right? In fact, I've always been the salesperson. There's that old book like getting the why or getting the yes.
Yeah.
And I've always been I want to know from somebody faster. I want them to say no as quick as they can because it disarms them. In the yes is like I'm agreeing to something, and they feel like you're selling them. But if you can get
Right.
them to say no to something, then they'll open up to you. And I usually start out with, is it ridiculous when, or do you think it would be a ridiculous ask for me to ask you this question? And they're like, no, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Then there's this conversation because they've given you permission by
Right.
saying no, not giving
Right.
you permission by saying yes. And that's
Right.
one thing that I did pick up from Chris Boss is he uses that technique. I don't know where I learned it. I've been doing that for 20 years, but
Right. And
it's a brilliant way.
yeah, and sometimes, when I do this a lot of times when, I don't think I know everything, but sometimes some of the things I do think I have a pretty good idea on. When you hear somebody else you respect basically parrot the same thing you think, just kind of reinforces that, hey,
Right.
I am kind of right on there.
I,
So
I can learn things.
yeah, so right now that we're looking at the economy back on the business here. The economy right now is just out of control, crazy. I mean, busy. And you
Right.
talked about education's key to yourself. Um, uh, you know, uh, work on, maybe take a look out on business. Is there any other major thing that a business owner right now can, or business leader can think about that can help them set them up for success, coming out, you know,
Yeah.
with all, I mean, again, it is some people, it's just explosive growth, so
Right.
it's, how do you, are there other strategies and techniques and ideas to kind of navigate through this and then, help your business become stronger, coming out the other end?
Right. Well, there's a couple things. One is start looking at your income, levels and start putting money away. Right.
Okay.
So one thing I did during the economic boom times with my first business was shove money into, what people call an emergency fund. But I was like, hey, let me go put it into something that would cash flow for me.
Oh,
Like Warren Buffett said, and Charlie Munger actually, I don't know if you watch the Berkshire Hathaway, you know, um, they have a deal every year for all of their stockholders,
oh,
and what they said was invest your money in low fee index funds, and so they have ones that will pay you dividends, and I think
oh.
that a lot of, and I'm not here to give stock advice,
Right,
but
right, yeah.
why in the world would you put your money into a savings account? that pays you
Yeah.
nothing and it's less than inflation when you
Yeah.
put something in something like that. And yes, it's in the stock market, but unless you're going to buy real property and invest in property, which then you're not
Right.
liquid at all,
Yeah.
you got to put it in something that'll create additional flows of income for you. And a lot of people are thinking my one flow of income that I have, which is right now a giant fire hose, and I love
Right.
it. You got to be thinking how to use your money and use your business to bring in additional flows of income, and they might be little flows here and there to keep your business stabilized. And then save that money right now
Right.
into something that will bring you additional flows of income. Because if you don't, when the economy goes down, it dips a little bit. Back in
Yeah.
2006, half of my customers were in construction.
Oh,
Guess what
wow.
happened to them in 2007, 2008? Almost all of them went out of business. Right. And
Yeah.
these were big companies with like
Yeah.
50 F-350
Yeah.
brand new trucks that were amazing.
Yeah.
And then I go out there and they're repoing their trucks. Right. So,
Wow.
for me, I'm like, how, if I was in construction or I had trades business, 90% of my customers are in the trades, home services.
Right.
And I always tell them, I'm like, business is great right now. Save your money. When you're like, oh, I need a new truck, maybe spend a little bit less, take the extra money and put it into something that will bring you business, because owning vehicles and owning homes are not a wealth building strategy.
Yeah.
It's not like the old days in the 60s where you got to own your home and that's a wealth building strategy for your
Right.
retirement. That's not the truth anymore. And that old way of work hard, save money, and put 10% of your income away isn't going to get it done when the economy takes a dive. So save more than 10% and save yourself some pain.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice. So, well, perfect. This has been great. One thing I want you to kind of talk about is a little bit more. I'm going to circle back to the very beginning because, like I said, I'm just fascinated. What are some of the buckets on your Do Work University? Right? Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Okay. And that's online courses. What are some of the courses that to kind of, so if people are something listening and kind of knowing? I know, like, you go ahead and just tell me what are some of the buckets you have up there for opportunities for people.
So right now, what it is so Do Work University, our online platform, is right now very accessible. I made it accessible to every business owner. It's $27 a month. It's
Wow,
less
that's
than what you pay for coffee, right?
yeah.
And then, so I made it accessible to almost everybody. And then what I teach you in there is marketing strategies, not ones that you have to pay money for, but ones that, that are organic marketing. Those are the first ones I'm putting on there right
Okay.
now. So, which is currently Google My Business, Nextdoor. I'll be adding, Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram ones as we go along. So
Okay.
every month I'm going to deliver a new course for that $27. If you come to one of my live classes, they're $300. So,
Right.
I'm delivering, right now I've got Google My Business and Nextdoor live online, and I'm
Wow.
adding a new one every single month, and I may add more, but I'll be getting into sales, marketing, finance, business scaling, business growth. And I talk a lot about building referral networks. That's one of my big things. That's how I've grown all of my businesses, referral
Right.
networks. I got Sell or Be Sold right here. That's Grant Cardone's book. Everybody thinks of the 10X rule when they think of him, but they don't think of this book, which is actually way better, Sell or Be Sold. And in there, he's got several chapters dedicated to building referral networks and activating your referral network and how to build those relationships. So I have a class on that, on how I've created referral networks over the last 20 years to grow multiple businesses. And I can go to my referral network and go, I'm no longer doing IT stuff. I'm doing a marketing business. Oh, I have this other, type of business. Oh, I'm doing outsource sales. And my referral, organization that I've built, all these referral partners, they just pivot with me and just go, oh, okay, I trust you. I know you, Joe. I've got this relationship with
Right.
you. It doesn't matter what business you have. We're going to refer you all the business you need to grow your business.
Right.
So, that's a course that's going on the Do Work University, and people will be able to get access to that. And I teach a live workshop on that. And that's one of the things I do coaching on, is walk people through a 6-week program on how to grow a referral network. So at the end of it, you've got a referral network that's just driving business into your company. So,
and
small groups.
Yeah, and referrals are, we all know, we hear it all the time, and it is true. I mean, if it's coming inbound from someone you trust, right, the conversion rates are tremendously bigger, because especially with people are so damn busy anymore. Back to your my like Google Maps and all that type of stuff, people and the Google ratings and stuff, is that people are busy, so they Google HVAC or new HVAC company near me, right? And
Right.
which I've done recently on an appliance. This has been probably a year ago now because of COVID, but it was like I had my refrigerator, something went wrong with it, right? I was like, it's off warranty. I was like, what the heck? I didn't want to do a ton of research. It was off warranty. I just near me, right? And so it, there's that's why people like to go to referrals, because there's so much information out there. There's so many options out there, right? It's like I Google appliance repair near me, right? And basically mentally circled the top three that had, 400, 399, 399, and called three up, picked one, and they came over and fixed my deal, right? So
Right.
going back to referrals is if I would have put it out there and said, hey, I need a such and such, and you said, hey, man, I need such, I would instantly, consider them being number one. So again, just because there's all this information that we're talking about right now, it's just awesome. But at the same time, it's a curse because there's so much information that people probably get that overload and go, okay, all I need done is I need this service. I need somebody that's credible. I don't want to have to interview a whole bunch of people and then reach out to your couple of your trusted people that you trust and get referrals.
Right. And that's the problem with the internet now is there's so much noise, right? It's
Yeah.
Facebook, you got websites, you got all these ads. And it used to be that, like Coca-Cola had this strategy years and years ago where if people saw their brand 6 times, they knew that they had a high likelihood that when they went in the store to get a soft drink of any kind, they would buy a Coca-Cola product.
Right.
It's 30 times now because people have to see your brand so much. So referrals are even more valuable than they used to be, right? Not that Google My Business and Nextdoor and online reviews, it all plays together. Like my neighbor across the street backed his car into his garage door in the morning. I walked over there and I'm like, I know a garage door guy who can fix this for you. And he's the best, right? And so I walked over there and I'm telling him about it. He's like, what's the guy's name? He pulls out his phone and is Googling the name of the company and reading his reviews right in front of me. Even though I gave him the referral, my neighbor knows me quite well.
Yeah.
And but he still wanted to read the online reviews. So it's the hand in hand thing that's really important. So businesses need to not say, oh, there's one magic wand that'll business.
No,
it's a combination of all of the things.
Yeah. That just reaffirms that Joe gave him a good referral, right? Because Joe's you're going, hey, this now versus somebody tells you this is the person you need to use, and you Google them and they have like half their reviews are terrible.
Right. You're like all 2 stars.
You're like going, when did you use these people? Because recently they seem to have a challenge, with service. But yeah, you're right. It isn't one thing, but I tell you, it's I can't tell you how. And I won't get too much in the weeds on this, but referrals. The biggest referral that I know was watched was somebody meets somebody for the first time and gave them a $2.2 million referral. Which was to a banker, and they introduced him to the person. Person said, "Oh, you say this is the person, that this done deal." So it can be done at a high level. So
yeah, I mean, my biggest thing I've ever sold, which was like a $5 million sale, came off of a referral from a real estate agent here in Boise. I met at a networking group. She's brand new in real estate, and somebody said, "Joe, you should just meet with her and help her out with some introduction." So I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." And so I sat down, had coffee with her, and she's like, "Hey, thank you for all this help. Who can I introduce to you?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for this type of manager at a certain type of company." And I'm like, "But they really don't exist in Boise, right? They're all in bigger cities." She's like, "Actually, my brother-in-law works for the exact company you're looking for in San Francisco, and he's not the guy, but he'll introduce you to the guy." So I talked to him, had a good call, and then he introduced me to his boss, who was in Houston. And I flew down, met him, and we signed a $5 million contract with him. And that was within 3 weeks of me having coffee with him.
Wow. Well,
don't poo-poo on the people you might meet, because I would never have guessed that brand new real estate agent in Boise who had no connections. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for the last 15 years, just starting at her career after her kids are off to school, would introduce me to the person who would introduce me to the person who got me the biggest deal in my life.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. And a lot of that, the big referrals like that, a lot of that is because they know you or who you're referring is high caliber, right? Because if they thought you were a newbie or sketchy, they're not going to refer you to for her brother, right? So they must have had faith in you and your abilities to help the brother. That's the thing I think people miss a lot of times on referrals is you might like somebody, it might be a great person, but are they good at what they do? Because if I refer them, especially to a family member, or anybody, but it's like I want to be. I've known you for years, and I've referred you for years. I've referred you recently. You do a great job. That's only because I have faith in your ability to help out the people I refer you to. So I think that's the part a lot of times on referrals people miss is I refer everybody to you. No, just because I like you, right? You need to prove to me that you're good at what you do. So that's a whole nother side thing, but no.
Yeah,
So
well, it's the know, like, and trust, right? It doesn't just apply to people buying from you. They're buying into the relationship when they're referring you. So they have to know you. And so just being omnipresent, that's what I like to call it, right? People used to say to me all the time, dude, you're everywhere. You're at every networking event. You're at every networking group. Every time there's some kind of Zoom thing, you're there, and there's Joe, and so people would know me. And then I would just start having conversations with people. And really my goal was to find out about them, get them to tell me all about them.
Right.
And so they start to like me, right? And then once I built that trust factor, then it's a no-brainer. Then they'll refer me. Yeah. And so you can do all of that in one meeting. So if you do it right.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to if someone has long experience and doing a great job and stuff, it's easier. That's the piece of the referral things is you got to know the person's a high caliber person that you can pass off, to they're going to do a good job, right? And I always say, like, know, and trust. You got to trust them as an individual, and also you have to trust that they know what the heck they're doing. You know what I mean? That they're experts in their field. You know what I mean? Is a refer, because that's the missing piece. Is I meet somebody, I like them, they're brand new, what they're doing, but I don't know yet if they or their company are referable.
Right.
You know what I mean? Versus somebody else I might know, So
right. And that's why social proof is so important, right? Those reviews.
Yeah,
reviews, right?
Yep.
You're professional.
Yep.
Having recommendations on Nextdoor is critical, right? People are not on Nextdoor, but on LinkedIn. People come to me all the time. They're like, hey, I want you to teach this workshop, or I want to partner with you to do this big project because I saw this recommendation on your LinkedIn profile. And so, getting those professional recommendations about yourself, like you talked about, is important. Having not only is the company good, but are you a good person?
Yeah. Are you a good person too? Well, this has been awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate it, Joe. If people kind of want to learn more about what you do or any of your classes you give, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Honestly, LinkedIn is the best way.
Okay.
Facebook is also good.
Okay.
I spend a lot of time on those two platforms.
Okay.
And
I'll make sure we put your LinkedIn, and your Facebook and your profile underneath the show notes here when I finish this up. So, well, perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Joe.
All right. Thanks for having me, Scott. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, have a good one. Thanks.